Hey, long time no see. This is 77 and I bring you here today to share with you a brand new thing I made. Yes, I made a thing. If you haven't seen the full reveal trailer yet, it will be linked in the description or you can just click on the card in the top right hand corner. But as you just saw, I've made a mod for Need for Speed Underground 2 that gives it a brand new New Game Plus inspired sandbox experience. The mod is called New Game X, or NGX for short. The goal of NGX is to give players who have completed Underground 2 back in the day a reason to go back and replay the game, but this time at a much higher difficulty in any car of their choosing. So what has changed? Well, to best explain that, I will have to go over what I meant by New Game Plus inspired sandbox experience. Firstly, New Game Plus is a mode that has become more and more popular in recent years. For the unaware, it is a mode that allows players to re-experience a game's single player mode after having already completed it once before. However, all the unlocks and stats of their previous standard playthrough carry across to this new playthrough, but the game is far more challenging to progress through. New Game Plus is especially common in games that feature a player choice driven progression system. For example, role-playing games like Deus Ex Mankind Divided provide a New Game Plus mode after you first finish the game. In recent years, even action games like Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order are starting to have their interpretations of New Game Plus. Anyway, that's what New Game Plus is, so how have I adapted it to suit Need for Speed Underground 2? Well, I realised very quickly that I do not possess the levels of witchcraft and wizardry necessary to make a straight to the point New Game Plus mode for Underground 2, as that would involve having to create a solution that extracts the player's cars from their old save file and replicates them so the player can use them at the very beginning of the game. Instead, I decided that at the very beginning of the game, every car is unlocked from the start and every visual customization option has also been unlocked and is available for free. We'll talk about wide body kits later, but essentially this is where the described sandbox experience comes around. Since every car and all its visual customization is available from the very beginning, it allows you to easily recreate any cars you used at the end of Underground 2, or just straight up make new and interesting rides. You can make the cars of your dreams or nightmares right from the start. Since NGX also comes bundled with the Link 2012's Visual Reputation Remover mod, you are no longer forced to heavily customize your car to be able to progress through the career mode. But don't think NGX is a cakewalk by any means. Each event in the game now features tougher and crazier opponents, higher amounts of traffic, and some even require increased concentration due to an increased lap count. This has resulted in some of the circuit races being turned into tests of mental endurance. Anyway, let's dial it back to changes to visual customization. Specifically, let's talk about those wide body kits and why there's a cheeky padlock next to them, despite my promise of full free customization. But before I do that, let me give you some context first. In the vanilla version of Underground 2, the player is given access to wide body kits towards the end of the career mode. To be specific, during stage 5 of the career, after the player wins 11 outrun events, they can unlock a single wide body kit for the car they're driving at the time, with the full catalogue of kits being unlocked once the player fully completes the career mode. So naturally, I wanted to unlock these body kits for the player right at the start. This would turn out to be the hardest part of developing this mod, but I managed to do it. Well, kinda. Turns out Black Box really, and I mean really, did not want these kits to be available at any point before stage 5, resulting in me having to do a ton of trial and error until I finally came up with a bizarre workaround that involves spawning 4 special events in each stage, with each event triggering the same stage 5 time trial that unlocks a single body kit for the car the player is driving. Let me explain. In each stage, aside from stage 1 where these will appear automatically, you'll have to win a single outrun event. Once you do that, 4 special events will appear on the map. Drive to any of them and it will tell you to drive to the nearest body shop. Once you do that, you can pick a body kit. You'll then leave the store and if you check the map, 3 special events are left. Do the same thing with these 3 events, picking a new body kit each time until you have access to the full selection of wide body kits for that car of yours. Please note that you'll have to do this with each new car you obtain, hence why you're able to make these special events reappear at each stage. This definitely isn't the ideal solution, but it's the best I can come up with for the time being. If I manage to create a better alternative, I'll release a patch that replaces the current system. But anyway, wide body kits as well as the rest of the visual customization options should be free to access from the very start of the game. Now this brings me nicely to the next major change to the game, an overhaul to the game's economy. Now I was going to include a full breakdown of the game's economy in this video, but after starting to write it, the word count of that section alone had started to far exceed the total word count of this video script so far. So instead, if any of you are interested, I can release a separate video at a later date where I give you a chaotic deep dive into a series of cursed spreadsheets that resulted in changes being made to Underground 2's very strange economy. Let me know if you want to see this, but the TLDR is that since visual customization is now free, I've increased the prices of all the performance upgrades to make sure that players don't speed through all the performance upgrades as a result of not having to spend any money on making their car look good. Anyway, let's move on, as I'm now going to answer the always fun question of, why did I make this? The last time I asked myself this question, I went on a full TEDx talk on how good product placement can result in there being positive impacts on the design of a game's world. This time around, it's because, well, I was bored, but also because I want to see more Underground 2 mods. At the very start of April of this year, I, for some reason, really wanted to play some Most Wanted 2005, and well, I did. But while I was playing, I could not stop thinking about how big the modding community is now for Most Wanted 2005. There are so many mods, ranging from small car mods to difficulty mods and even ultra mega conversion mods. So naturally, I couldn't help but wonder about what's going on with the Underground 2 modding scene. Why? Well, because I love the Underground games, and I wanted a good reason to go back and play Underground 2. But at this point, the only major Underground 2 mod project I could see was the Underground 2.net mod, but since that one was back then and is, as of writing, still in development, I decided to run a search on the interwebs for other similar mods that shake up the gameplay, but I could not find anything. Naturally, my searches would lead me down a bizarre rabbit hole of random Underground 2 videos, including a whole bunch of old beta analysis videos by Grand Theft Aero and Speedy Heart. In these videos, I learned that apparently, Underground 2's setting of Bayview originally had a far more complex highway system which was cut before the release of the game. And so, out of curiosity, I ran another search on the interwebs to see if anyone had managed to restore it from the old demo of Underground 2, and someone kinda did. I'm not sure. I never downloaded it, admittedly. But the thing that stood out to me about this mod more than its actual content was something listed in its description. What is Binary V2? Turns out it's a modding tool for Black Box Need for Speed games, and so with nothing better to do that day, I decided to download it and give it a very cheeky sus. I gave it a bit of a look and saw that it was fairly straightforward to get my head around, and I quickly realised that I had everything I needed to make changes to Underground 2's career mode. Naturally, the first thing that came to mind was, hey, I can make a New Game Plus mod. No, it wasn't. The first thing I did was make it so all the game shops appeared on the map after you unlocked them. This was something that really annoyed me about vanilla Underground 2. But after that, I started to think about what I could make that would give me a good reason to replay all of Underground 2. This is when I started to think about how a New Game Plus mode would work for this game. And so I made a text file so I could brainstorm all the changes I wanted to make to Underground 2's career to sorta create something close to what you could expect out of a New Game Plus mode for this game. Once I did that, well, I got to work. Fast forward a couple of months consisting of tinkering, testing, repeatedly hearing Rachel introduce herself, teasing on Twitter, trailering, writing, editing, and now, finally, both mods are complete and are each available to download on both Nexus Mods and nfsmods.xyz. Wait, both mods? There's two of them? Yeah, so I made an alternative edition of New Game X called New Game X Passion. The main difference is that unlike regular NGX where all the cars are available from the start, NGX Passion preserves Vanilla Underground 2's original car unlock system. So the other noteworthy changes like tougher and longer events, fully unlocked visual customization, and the new economy are still present, but cars still need to be unlocked by winning URL events just like in the original game. The reason I made this alternative edition of NGX is that I'm personally really fond of the progression systems of older racing games from this era. I really appreciate a well-designed progression system that challenges me as a player and encourages me to do better. This ultimately results in me feeling a greater sense of satisfaction with my accomplishments in the game. So for me, starting a game in a low-end car with a little bit of money and that's it is fantastic. It makes me wonder what the faster cars will be like to drive and how they might be different from what I'm currently driving. In recent years, racing games have started to move away from this sort of progression. So much so that, to me at least, their progression systems are hardly progression systems, as a lot of them I'm guessing were designed to give players more choice in how they approach the game. This has resulted in players of these sorts of games having a significant amount of money and high-end cars being consistently handed to them, without them having to earn these in any meaningful manner. For me personally, this results in the rewards themselves losing their value and not being all that special in the end. And so I realised while making NGX that by having every car unlocked from the start, I was sacrificing something that makes Need for Speed Underground 2 and other racing games from this era so unbelievably special. That was their passion-centric progression systems. Now, it's not unheard of for New Game Plus modes to be modified to better suit a game's focus. At the start of the video, I mentioned Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order's New Game Plus mode. It was called New Journey Plus, and in it, all that carried over from your previous playthrough were all the cosmetic items you collected throughout your journey, leaving that game's original Force Power progression system completely untouched, as it would have gone against the story of Fallen Order as it was about the protagonist's journey in rediscovering their connection to the Force. If all the game's Force powers were unlocked from the start, it would have contradicted that story. So if you, like me, love how progression systems in racing games used to be, NGX Passion is for you. But if you want to experience Underground 2 in a very different but familiar way, or if you prefer a greater sense of freedom and choice of recent racing titles, then NGX Original should hopefully give you a fantastic experience. Regardless of which version you choose, the steps to install NGX are the same. Make sure to follow the instructions on the mod page and the readme file very carefully so you don't run into any issues. I might release a full installation tutorial video at a later date. Before I end this video, I want to thank a few people. Firstly, I want to thank Link 2012 for letting me include their Visual Reputation Remover mod with NGX. The freedom your mod provides is fantastic and I knew from the start that it had to be included with NGX. I want to thank 13AG and Aero for creating the widescreen fix for Underground 2. It is an absolutely essential mod for running the game on modern computers, and I was very glad to hear that I could bundle it with NGX. I really appreciate it. I wish to thank Max Woy, apologies if I mispronounced your name, for creating Binary. It's a fantastic program that I recommend that anyone curious about creating mods for Black Box Need for Speed games should check out. Next, I want to thank Sharon Alexander, who you might remember as the actress that voiced Samantha in Need for Speed Underground 1 and 2, for taking part in the creation of NGX's teaser meme video. As someone who grew up playing the Underground games, it was an absolute delight to hear your voice in that video. I really appreciate it. I also want to thank Red Rides OG. If it weren't for you adding a link to Binary in your beta map mod for Underground 2, I probably wouldn't have started this crazy journey. Finally, I want to thank all the people that have supported me these past few months. You all know who you are. Thank you for all the feedback on the various cuts of the reveal trailer to just being excited about this mod's existence. It means a lot to me. Thank you all very much. Now, this is the first release of NGX and NGX Passion, so they might have some issues, or they might not, who knows. Based on your feedback and whatnot, I'll continue to tinker with it and potentially release updates for it later down the line, but I don't want to promise anything at this point. If anything, I hope this video and these two mods spread awareness for the modding scene for Need for Speed Underground 2 and that they inspire you to maybe try and make your own mod for Underground 2 or any other Black Box Need for Speed game. But anyway, this has been 77 and this was my 77th video. yep, we've hit a milestone. If you've been following this channel before the release of NGX and wondered why I've been gone for about a year, or what the future holds for 77 vids, a channel update video will be releasing within the next day or so. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you all very much for watching. Stay safe. Take care.